I'm here with
Georgia Steele, Programme Leader for Foundation Plus.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm Tim Meara, I'm a Curriculum Coordinator on Foundation.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And can you please tell us a little bit about your course and the aspirations you have for your course and your students?
Well, Foundation is really an important moment for students because it's a one-year programme where they work out really what they want to do in the future, and it's a course where they work out their discipline and they get familiar and comfortable within that discipline, and it really sets out where they're going to progress to in the future.
Okay.
There are certain sort of toolbox, if you like, that the student needs to have in order to progress within the university, and Foundation is very much a place where we introduce some of the skill sets to do with research, to do with integration of criticality into practice, and that's something that students need a format for, need a way, a framework to question what they're doing, to analyse what they're doing, and then to understand where what they're doing fits within the context of art and design.
Okay. And how does the course design support this?
Well, all the work that we ask students to do as they go through the course is preparing them gradually for progression, and the design of the course is really based around these kind of core activities. So research is there all the way through, underpinning all of their projects, ideas development, exploring all the methods of working and making that are suitable to their discipline, and reflective practice, which runs all the way through the work that students do. And it's all mixed up together in every project so that students are learning a kind of creative way of working that prepares them for future courses and for their work in the industry perhaps later.
But we also make sure that all these processes are kept very visible. So where later on in your practice you perhaps have processes you go for in a private space, and then objects or ideas that you share more publicly, we ask the students to understand research, evaluation, reflection, critical practice by making it seen and shared with each other. And our use of digital technology or online platforms is part of how we do that within the course, alongside sketchbooks and workshops, which are obviously much more collaborative.
Okay.
We use workflow for about half the work that students do.
Okay.
So as Tim said, they've got their sketchbooks, they've got the physical work they create in the studios and in the workshops, and then online they have a digital reflective space where we ask them to write and include images reflecting on their practice, and we also ask them to gather all of their research and to analyse their research and to categorise it and group it on workflow as well. So that's about half of their submissions at each stage.
All of these components are also key parts of our assessment process. So every aspect of a student's practice on the course is what is assessed, and in that sense we don't have a digital platform just to support their practice. It's an assessed element.
That's really important to the way that we teach it, and it's really important to the way that we want students to work, joining every aspect of their practice. So although they might not be doing the digital work whilst they're in the studio, it's all connected, and the way we speak about their practice is very much connected between the digital work and the way that they present their work digitally and the work that they're doing in the studio.
And how much did you need to learn about the technology, the workflow, etc., to get this up and running?
Well, there was, in a way, we did it the wrong way in that we were introduced to workflow as a portfolio tool.
Okay.
And we were encouraged to find a way within our course of helping students to build spaces to show their finished outcomes on a digital platform. And in that introduction, me and a few others recognised the potential to perhaps misuse the platform, instead of presenting finished work, to become a space for critical practice, for writing. And what we liked about workflow was the ability for the user to choose its audience. So it could be either kept quite private, shared within studio groups, or if the student wished, communicated beyond that to a wider audience. And that gave us the possibility to ask students to do reflective practice or writing about their own practice that wasn't a blog, wasn't a public platform, but in a formalised manner. So we perhaps didn't learn as much as we should about what workflow was designed for, and that enabled us to sort of misuse it for our own purpose, and it's become more and more then embedded in the course we deliver now.
We're a really big course and we've got a really big teaching team, and I think for lots of us we've been surprised by how straightforward it was learning how to teach the use of workflow.
Yes.
The way we approach it really is through kind of technical introduction, which we do very early on in the course, showing students how it works, and we try to keep that really simple. We don't show them all of the functionality, we keep it really, really simple.
Yeah.
And then actually most of the teaching that relates to workflow is teaching that we were doing anyway. Teaching students how to reflect, teaching students how to write critically, how to engage with their research references is something that we did anyway, so it didn't really change when we started to use workflow. That's just how the work is prepared and submitted.
Yes.
It's not really been that much of a change for us.
Some people have referred to workflow as much more of an e-studio, or an e-studio as well as being an e-portfolio. Is that something you might agree with?
Well, definitely. We were very keen that students were able to share their process, the kind of context or the world they create within which to work, and not having physical studio spaces that students stick pictures up and inhabit. Workflow allowed us the sort of aspiration that students could build environments that they very much see as providing their own context, and that can be shared, or they can view each other's, they can comment on each other's, and we can form them into different areas of the curriculum by inviting them to different groups. So there was definitely the idea that rather than just an accessible element, this was potentially a sort of studio-like space.
I think it's really interesting that students can access their workflow any time and anywhere, and it gives them almost an individual studio, an independent space, a place where they can access at any time. I mean, actually on the foundation course students have lots of time in the studio, lots of time supported by tutors, but it's an important part of what we do, getting them to establish that independent working practice, and it really facilitates that because it's open all the time.
Yes.
That's really important, I think, to how we all conceive of it.
Yes.
It's also customizable enough that you can either choose to use it in its basic form, or particularly I work with the graphic design students, it allows them to really put their own mark on it and subdivide or organise their work in a way that feels designed by or personal to them.
Yes.
And we do a lot of sessions where we sit them around a projector and screen examples of what they're doing digitally and encourage them to reflect on that, but they can also access each other's very easily.
What sort of things have you found that staff and students struggle with?
Sometimes the practicality of the system, only being able to upload one image at a time. It can be quite slow sometimes to upload large images. Yes. So there are bits and pieces like that we end up explaining again and again. Yeah. But in terms of really how the system is used within the students' learning and within assessment, we don't find problems with it in that way. It's just about how it works.
There's another interesting problem we hit, that by default workflow is private, which at first we liked because it's quite a protected environment, but the students have complete control over how they share their work and when.
Yeah.
And because we use this as a key part of assessment, that's caused problems. And I think it's something, a part of a discussion we're starting to have more and more now, where we feel workflow allows students quite a protective environment, which is important to us. But I think the aspects of privacy are problematic, and we would like the default to be public. When I say public, I mean public within UAL.
Right.
And there's a possibility later on that you turn off bits, but it's the other way around at the moment.
It's quite important to us that that the students know the work that they're going to do in workflow is going to be shared at assessment, and it is going to be shared with their peers. But it's also important that it's not going to be shared with the world. And we know that in future and in other contexts, students probably will share some of this aspect of their practice more publicly, but this is a safe space, and this is where they can learn those skills and develop confidence before they make themselves vulnerable really to a wider audience.
And that was for us a very clear aspiration that later through the university there's the hope that you influence the subject debate, that you actively participate in the debate around your subject on a public level. And we found on foundation maybe our role was to introduce ways that might happen, but not need that to be public at this stage. But of course crucial to us is that the students are able to access each other's work, and it does function more like a studio or community, and rather than a private closed off space that people can't access outside of that time.
Yes. When it comes to, I mean, this is continuously assessing, isn't it, as part of the course, as you?
Yeah, we've got 3 main assessment points through the course.
Yeah. So do you make use at all of the submission options within workflow, whereby you can upload or you can submit a collection or a page or so for assessment and have that locked?
No, we tend not to, because we don't want students to select work for assessment. We want to see this whole part of their practice.
Yes.
So very much like we ask our students to submit all of their sketchbooks at assessment. We ask them to submit all of their outcomes at assessment. We want to see all of their practice, all their process work as well.
But that does highlight another strength of a digital platform, that it's ongoing, that students can edit what they're doing. And in the past, when they were making physical folders for reflective writing or research, it wasn't a live document, it was a sort of dead archive of very expensive photocopies.
Yes.
And particularly we found students, well, a lot of our students have dyslexia or language problems. We have lots of international students, and that ability to slightly formalise a process and be able to edit it takes away a lot of the fear in writing, and in thinking about writing as developing a personal voice. We found when they were writing in notebooks, it was a much more problematic exercise.
Thank you. Do you have any other thoughts or reflections on your course and your use of various platforms?
I think we could do more with it. I think we're both interested in the ways that we could do more to support an online community as part of the course. I mean, we're really lucky that this course is very short. Really, it's sort of September to the end of April, and it's really intense. We've got the benefit of lots of time in the studio, lots of time together, but it would be really good to explore ways that we could support more collaboration, perhaps across different areas, different pathways, different studios. And it would be really good to get more happening, more of a genuine community happening through workflow perhaps, or through other platforms.
I think as well, we were introduced to workflow by BA Graphic Design, who use it as a submission tool, so purely outcome based as portfolios. And what we've seen in the last 2 years is students occasionally create a workflow site as a foundation student and progress through first and second year of BA, creating an archive of their foundation, adding a first year, archiving that and adding a second year. And that's an amazing thing to be able to see a journey over the 4 years they might study here. And I think if we could see more of that practice happening, there would be a sense of students being able to look through workflow at the whole journey through foundation and BA, perhaps reflection on practice over 4 years rather than just over half a year. And I think as the use of workflow changes, you'd be able to see that looking ahead to what's coming next, perhaps community widening, so talking between BA and foundation.
And possibly beyond. We could do a lot more to support students to stay involved in our networks and our community beyond graduation, and that could be something we support digitally.
Have students made use of the export function at all in workflow? Do they take content out and put it in different platforms, use it in different ways, possibly when they leave, or?
Not that I know of. I don't know of anyone taking their content and using it again elsewhere. I know that students do take copies of it, so they take it for their own archive.
Yes.
Which is sort of sad, really. It's because they're losing access to it when they leave us.
Yes, that's right.
There's a funny thing with foundation that I think maybe it's the same later too, but it takes students a number of years to realise what they learnt or what they went through and how that was important to their journey later on. And I think with the reflection, it's quite a formalised process on foundation, and it's about that moment where you discover a voice or you understand the value of your own critical opinion in talking about the context you're interested in. And I think they see that going through foundation very much in the context of what we need them to do to pass the course, rather than in a few years' time they understand the importance of that in influencing the subject debate, in being asked to speak at conferences, writing as a dissertation, a key part of their practice. On foundation, they don't have that realisation within the time frame we have them. So I think the more workflow is perhaps used across multiple levels of the university, it will become more interesting for us in the way we teach it.
I think our interest in workflow and in other digital possibilities really is to follow what's happening and to respond with whatever is needed on the course. And I don't think any of us would expect to lose sketchbooks and the work that students make physically in the way that people spontaneously work, the paper and pens work. But I think that there are lots of digital possibilities for other things that we probably can't yet imagine, and we're really interested in all the opportunities. Because we're a one-year course, we're quite fleet of foot. We're keen to try new things.
It's one thing perhaps I feel important to put in is how we, over the last 3 years, have tried to evaluate its effect to the course. And a number of years ago there was a statistic put to us about levels of achievement on the course and how that maps onto home EU students and international students. And it's very hard for someone whose first language isn't English to get merit or distinction grades on the course, because so many of the criteria are language based in terms of writing, reflection, critical analysis. And I think in the last few years we've got pretty strong evidence to support many more international students getting higher grades because of the format we've asked them to work in. Somehow writing through a digital platform is less scary and is able to be more specific and more critical.
And edited, literally. You can go back in and improve the standard of your writing after feedback. You're so unlikely to rewrite a notebook, to return to earlier thoughts if they're not physically editable. So I think that makes a really big difference also to the way that students conceive of the possibility of changing your mind, deepening your thought, and developing what you do. It's sort of become a part of a manifestation of the way we want students to develop as students, as practitioners, thinking of themselves perhaps as a bit more editable.
Georgia and Tim, thank you very much.
Pleasure.